Hello and welcome to another video. In this one, we're going to be talking about pytest, and I'm going to go over all of the various different, I guess, results for tests in pytest, and talk about what each of those mean and how I tend to use them. So let's jump into it. This was originally a question for my stream about xfail and what xpass is, and so I'll cover those two as part of talking about all the different ways that a test can result. So to get started, let us first make a virtual environment, and we're going to pip install pytest. We have to have pytest to go off this. And we're going to start with the very most basic form of a test result, which is a passing test. Assert 1 equals 1. And if we run this, I'm going to use pytest-v because it's going to spell out the full name of the status here. If I don't use -v here, this just shows up as a single green dot, and those are going to be equivalent here. So that is our very first test type, which is passed. The second test type that we're going to get is a failure. I should pass, spell it out. Assert 1 equals 2. So you'll see we now have passed and failed. There's a related type to failed, which is errored. Let's see. I think the only way that I remember how to introduce errored is to use a failing fixture. I'm sure there are other ways. Pytest.fixture. Fixture. Assert false, and then def test errored. Assert 1 equals 1. So in this case, it fails during the setup of this test, and so it should show, error. So error. It probably should be errored to match the case here, like the other ones, but I guess it's slightly different on that one. But yeah, errors are those are failures that happen during setup. I think they also are failures during teardown as well. Error at teardown. So we actually get a passed and an error here, which is kind of interesting. This is one of the cases where a test will have more results than just the test itself, and that is because during teardown you can get additional failures. So this is actually one passing and one failing test at the same time. Okay, so those cover the very basic types of results in pytest, and then you get into the more complicated ones, which are skipping and xfailing. So let's talk about skipping first. Skipping is probably the easiest one to describe. pytest.mark.skip. Test skipped. We actually don't need to put a body here. So with skipped tests, these are not run at all, and pytest, the newest version, will print out the reason for the skip here. So in this case, I don't have any reason on this skip here, so it just says unconditional skip. But you could also say reason equals, this is broken. Now, I would argue that a broken test should either be deleted or fixed, but sometimes this can be a quick fix for a failing test, to just skip it and not even run it. I actually don't like using skip myself unless I know for absolute certainty that it is impossible for it to pass. I usually prefer to use xfail, which I'll go over in a second, which is an expected failure. But yeah, this is skip and the reason here. There's also skip if you need to do a conditional skip. So we skipped conditionally. So the first parameter here in skip if is the condition to check. So you could say like sys.platform equals Linux, reason Windows behavior or something like that. So he would skip a Linux specific test here. So you can see, of course I need to import sys. And yeah, there we go. So you can see we conditionally skipped this test because this skip if condition was true. I believe you could also put a callable in here as well. I usually prefer to just put the actual value here. I think you can also put a string that gets evaled, but that gives me the heebie-jeebies, so don't do that. But yeah, this is skipping and conditional skipping. So next I want to talk about expected failures. And for that, pytest.mark.xfail. This is to mark a test that you expect it to fail. So maybe this is a feature that you want to implement eventually, but you know it doesn't work currently, or maybe this is like you're writing a regression test and then you're going to fix it, or This is on a platform you don't intend to work but might work. So you would mark it as an expected failure. So expected to fail. And for the sake of this, we're just going to do an actually failing test so that we see what expected fail looks like. So you'll see here we get kind of a yellow output, which says that this is an expected failure, but it's fine. So expected failure with yellow is success, but it's letting you know, oh, this is we expect this to fail. If you don't have verbose mode on, the expected fail will be a small x. There is actually a big X, which is an expected failure, but it's passing. So you can do that with, let's say, we just did pass here, expected to fail, but passing. And so that'll give you a big X here. And so what big X means is we expected it to fail, but it mysteriously passed. And if we do, back to verbose again, you'll see that we get xpass. So this is an unexpected passing test. And you can actually turn this unexpected passing test into a failure. By default, it's just a warning. So you'll see here, oh, we got one because the fail in there. Let me comment those out. Well, you'll see that we get a return value of 0 here, even though this unexpectedly passed. And we can turn this into an actual failure by using strict equals false, or strict equals true. And that will mean that, when we have, oh, this is weird up. When we have an expected failure, but it's accidentally passing, we can turn that into an actual failure by setting strict equals true here. And just like skipif, you can set a condition for this xfail here. So if we did, sys.platform equals Linux, reason Windows behavior. So exactly the same argument spec as skipip up here. You can conditionally expected failure here. So you can see we get again the same sort of output with xfail and this here. I think that covers all of the various ways that a test can have a result. There's probably a few that I'm forgetting, but these are by far the main ones. I did want to talk about my thoughts on skipping versus expected failure, because this is sometimes a contentious topic. I very rarely, almost never use skip. I'm almost always using expected fail for kind of two reasons. One is even in the expected failure case, it's going to show that there is coverage for that particular function. So it's going to try and run this code, and so it's going to mark it as covered. If I do a skip, I will make sure to pragma no cover such that I don't have to worry about the actual coverage of this function body, because I usually like to keep my test coverage, the coverage of the tests, to be 100% to avoid common mistakes of tests that I thought were running but were mysteriously not. But yeah, I tend to lean towards xfail, and I use stricts when I know that it should always fail. This can be useful to demonstrate a failing case. But anyway, that's all the types of test results in pytest. Hopefully this was useful. If there are additional things you would like me to explain, leave a comment below or reach out to me on the various platforms. But thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.